You're listening to Puma Podcast.
What you do in this world binds you. Iyo yan. Huwag mong sisihin ang ibang tao kasi sarili mong utak at katawan yan. Nung ako'y mayor, pinakitaan ako ng evidence ng PDEA. Doon sa listahan, nandoon yung pangalan mo. Ayaw kong sabihin yan kasi magkaibigan tayo. Kung hindi magkaibigan, magkakilala. Ikaw pumapasok kayo ng alanganin. Mr. President, baka susunod ka sa dinaanan ng tatay mo.
The cracks within the ruling Marcos-Duterte alliance are growing more pronounced each day.
I think it's the fentanyl. Fentanyl is the strongest painkiller that you can buy. It is highly addictive and it has a very serious side effects. And PRRD has been taking the drug for a very long time now. When was the last time he told us that he was taking fentanyl? Mga 5-6 years ago. Something like that. After 5-6 years, that has to affect him. Kaya, alagay ko, kaya nagkakaganyan. I hope his doctors take better care of him than this. Hindi pinababayaan itong mga nagiging problema.
But sir, can you categorically deny that you're involved in drugs para matapos lang
Don't even dignify.
The uncoupling of the team that swept the 2022 elections has seen accusations of illegal drug use, threats of secession, and calls for resignation, and the public has watched in rapt fascination. But beyond the entertainment, in this episode, we ask, what should we make of all this infighting? I'm Bella Perez Rubio, Puma Podcast, and you're listening to Teka Teka News.
Sa tingin ko kasi, Roby, wala naman talagang team unity na nangyari. It was a team na binuo para lang manalo sa eleksyon.
That's Earl Pareño, author of Beyond Will and Power, a biography of former President Rodrigo Duterte.
If you say team unity, dapat may programa yon. Or may malalim sila na unity maliban sa beso-beso. Pero ang nangyari kasi, it was all beso-beso. It was all for show. Wala nga silang program na binuo. And Sara, sa prodding na rin ng pagkakaalam ko ni Digong, ay hiningi DND. Kaya nung nalagay siya sa DepEd, signal sa kanila yon na hindi magtatagal itong tinatawag nilang team unity.
The disunity within the administration was on full display this January as the Duterte family and its allies held a rally supposedly to urge President Marcos Jr. to reconsider the push for charter change. But Davao City Mayor Baste Duterte went so far as to call on the president to resign.
Mr. President, kung wala kay gugma, kung wala kay aspirations sa imuhang naso, resign.
And as you heard at the top of this episode, former President Duterte claimed that the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency once showed him evidence that Marcos used illegal drugs.
Caught in between all of this, of course, one is the one main character, Sara Duterte, not just caught in between, but she's really central to all of this.
That's Robbie Alampay, Puma Podcast's founder and editor-at-large.
And I think yung latest statement ni Vice President Sara Duterte was really trying to navigate itong dalawa, di ba? Trying to stay in the middle. She came out with a statement na What can I do? Tatay ko yan, kapatid ko yan, respetado ko sila. But at the same time, you know my history. I haven't always agreed with them. She's also basically saying, in this case, I'm not calling on President Marcos to resign. I believe in the programs of this government and so on. But give us first the context, Earl. As we said, no, si Earl wrote the biography of President Rodrigo Duterte that goes all the way back to the time even of his mother. No, so this is something that's fascinating, that it's important for people to understand.
Kung si Digong lang at si Sara pag-uusapan, magkaiba talaga yung dalawa. Hindi necessarily makikinig si Sara sa tatay niya. So, kung titignan natin si Sara, marami siyang mga advice na nagmumula hindi lang sa tatay niya, kundi kay former President GMA, in fact, sa kay Aimee. Aimee, madalas sa Davao, yung birthday niya last year, doon siya sa Davao with Sara nag-celebrate, hindi dito. So, medyo may pagka-chami-chami sila. And I think yung friendship nila, if you could call that friendship, ay medyo nag-grow.
Senator Amy Marcos, the president's sister, attended the Duterte rally and said a very pointed prayer for her brother.
Ng Pilipinas. Buksan po ninyo ang kanyang mga mata at bigyan niyo siya ng kaliwanagan ng pag-iisip. Gisingin niyo po siya at ilayo sa mga demonyong nakapaligid sa palasyo. Ipaalala ninyo
But
sa
took
kanya
offense when Mayor Baste Duterte called on him to resign.
Although nakita natin na nung sinabi ni President Marcos na it must be the fentanyl, no? But after that, yung response naman ni former President Duterte was to further escalate it by challenging President Marcos na magpa-drug test sila.
That's Bogs Tanggol, a finisher of the Obama Foundation Global Leaders Program. He used to teach political science and public policy at Mindanao State University.
So, kailangan mo ring basahin at subukang intindihin bakit nga ba ginagawa ito ni President Duterte. Sa palagay ko, this act, no, this response of escalating it is but a strategy para nga magkaroon pa ng opportunity for them to perhaps sit together and renegotiate on some of those political concessions na marahil sa perspective ng pamilya Duterte, hindi sinunod, no, ng Marcos administration. Para makita ni President Marcos na, okay, I have to pay attention to the Duterte family and maybe we can talk.
More from Boggs and the rest after a quick break.
President Marcos himself has been hesitant to actually engage in a tit-for-tat with Duterte. Siguro ang kung matatawag mo natin, job lang na ginawa niya is yung hirit niya regarding fentanyl, na it must be the fentanyl. No? That could have been kumbaga knee-jerk reaction, but his other public pronouncements suggest na at least yung stated position niya, he still supports Sara Duterte and sees Sara Duterte as an ally in terms of progressing or achieving the goals of his administration.
But apart from, and more important than all this politicking, is this. How does this rift affect the rest of us?
At the end of the day, sino man ang nanalo sa kanila, talo ang publiko. Dahil as more attention is being given and resources is being funneled to this rift between them, may masasacrifice talaga, may mako-compromise talaga in terms of delivery of public services. And we've seen this when it comes to political rivalries. There is a tendency to weaponize public services. We've seen that in the budget process and how our legislators deliberate and legislate the budget, no? Mula pa lang sa NEP, even sa executive level, no, yung National Expenditure Program, papunta na sa pag-legislate ng GAA. So hindi lamang yun, nakita rin natin sa naging very public na post ni Paolo Duterte patungkol sa pagtanggal, no, ng budget sa kanyang distrito. Or sabi niya nga niya, kumbaga they are ganging up on him, no? So meron talagang nawe-weaponize, and unfortunately it will have to be public policies. It will have to be the services. So does this come at the expense of lesser services for the constituents of Duterte, the Duterte family? Does this mean that kahit yung mga magagandang initiatives ng either camps hindi susuportahan ng ilang mga political leaders because of this rift and how this is actually drawing the lines, the political lines? I think hindi lamang to kumbaga kuro-kuro, but it is something that we have seen in the past, and it's something that might happen if, yun na nga, sinasabi ko kanina, this eventually becomes a vicious cycle na kumbaga balikan lang sila.
But what questions do you think the public should be asking other than sinong nananalo, sino kaya ang mananalo?
Again, that's Puma Podcast founder and editor-at-large, Robbie Alampay.
Napakahirap sagutin ng mga tanong, no, dahil nga very loaded. Pero siguro nabanggit na rin yung ibang mga dapat itanong maliban sa sino nga ba yung nanalo. Kasama na dyan, nasan ba ang opposition? Halimbawa, ano ba yung posisyon ng opposition pagdating dito? Sila ba ay amused din na spectators, including their supporters, na parang, gaya nga nang sabi mo, Robbie, yung tuwang-tuwa pa yung mga tao, yung iba pa sinasabi na, tama kami. And will this growing rift, or some would say falling out, actually redound to their benefit? Karamihan siguro sa tingin ko, karamihan ng nasa opposition are at right now just observers, no? Nag-observe pa lang sila. Save for, say, Senator Ontiveros, who has been very active in her public pronouncements as well. In fact, calling for both of them to undergo drug testing, for example. Definitely, some are amused, but we see, for example, in the leadership, such as kay former Senator Kiko Pangilinan very recently, saying na hindi makakatulong yung ganyang rhetoric na tama kami. In other words, yung hindi bumoto sa BBM Sara na tandem, mali kayo. No? Hindi yun nakakatulong dahil divisive siya.
For Obama leader Bogs Tanggol, it's critical that the public play an active role as well.
Tingin ko, isa sa pwede nilang maging role, and not just the opposition but the public in general, is to help nudge the discourse towards what's really important. Ano ba yung mga issues? Ano ba yung underlying issues na naging root din nung hidwaan between these two camps? No, if they take the lead in driving the attention towards more pressing social issues, tingin ko yun yung pwede nilang ma-carve out na role for them.
In fact, this coming 2025, Bog says the public can and should take this infighting into account and vote accordingly.
Napaka-relevant ng issue na to because of how it is drawing political lines and how it is showing the different positions and positioning of the different potential candidates for the forthcoming elections. I think definitely this should be factored in, not just yung incident itself, but gaya ng nasabi ko, how the political lines are being drawn, ano yung mga lumalabas na position nila on critical issues that are not really novel and new but have always come up during forthcoming elections. Chacha, for example, all voters should pay attention hindi doon sa bangayan, but rather what's left being unstated. Ano yung hindi nila sinasabi? Ano kaya yung underlying motivations nila? Kung bakit ganun yung nangyayari sa pagitan ng Marcos at Duterte.
And that was today's episode of Teka Teka News. Again, I'm Bella Perez Rubio. This episode was cut from a wider-ranging conversation streamed on Puma Podcast's YouTube page. Subscribe to our channel if you'd like to hear more. Pidoy Blanco edited this episode. Our executive producer is Jill Caro, and our senior news editor is Veronica Uy. Thanks for listening.